Good dag. I'm David Mitchell from New Zealand. Some of you may know that I was the writer for this book, which was published in Danish in 2014. In English it's What Really Works in Special and Inclusive Education. But I'm here today to introduce you to my new book in English. I'm not sure about the Danish title yet, but in English it's called Diversities in Education, with the subtitle Effective Ways to Reach All Learners. So the background to the book really arises from the fact that our Western countries, and some other countries too, are becoming more and more diverse. With globalization, we're getting much more movement of people. With conflicts, we're getting more and more refugees around the world. And another factor which I think is contributing to diversity is the, particularly in Western countries, is the number of people who are saying they don't have any religion or define themselves as being atheists. So we have a much more mixed belief system in many of our countries. In the book I refer to what I've called, and what other writers have called, super diversity. This is the era in which we are living, and I think it's going to be increasing in the next few years. It's posing, this super diversity is really posing very severe challenges to education. And indeed, in my book I go so far as to say that some of the challenges facing societies around the world are going to require education to address this issue of diversity in the schools. How can we better prepare our children from diverse backgrounds for the future, and so on. In the book I refer to 5 main areas of diversity, and as you can see from this attached slide, the 5 main areas are gender, socioeconomic status, ethnicities, religion, and different abilities, particularly those with disabilities. And we can't take these 5 areas in isolation. They all interact with each other. For example, when we look at one of the most disadvantaged groups, we look at the way in which gender, social class and ethnicity all intersect. In fact, somebody uses this term intersectionality to define this relationship among the 3 major areas of diversity. So I have one chapter on each of these topics, and of course there is an introduction which gives more of a theoretical perspective. In that I talk a lot about, or write a lot about, human rights. I look at social justice, and one of the major themes, and one I picked up in my previous book, What Really Works, is the theme of inclusiveness. And I argue, I hope convincingly, that we have major problems in segregation, separation of people in our schools, of children in our schools, based sometimes on their gender, sometimes on their socioeconomic status, simply by reason of where they are living. And the same applies to ethnicity. We have in my country, and perhaps to some extent in Denmark. We have children from different ethnic minorities who tend to be aggregated into particular schools. We almost have special schools for ethnic minorities, special schools for low socioeconomic status. And my argument is that that is not a good thing. Not a good thing at all, socially and also in terms of education. So that's a couple of the major themes that I address. There are several others which I can't go into right now. The final point I'd like to make is in telling you how I'm approaching my book, is I've taken an ecological perspective. Let me explain what that means, and I'll show you the PowerPoint here to get some idea of what I mean. When we look at the causation of disadvantages in those 5 different areas, I think it's important to have an ecological viewpoint. And by that I mean we've got to look at the family context. Well, of course we've got to look at the child himself or herself and their particular features and characteristics and potential. But beyond the child we have the family, and the family can provide a very good learning environment, a very good environment for children's development, or unfortunately it may provide negative experiences. Then beyond that we go into the school, that we start with the classroom, and I look at issues that may arise in the classroom that disadvantage certain children. Then we've got to look at the school. The school is an organization, and the same applies there. We may have factors in the way in which the school is managed, in the culture of the school, which could lead to disadvantages in children. And beyond that we've got the community, the neighborhood, the community in which the children live, and further yet out beyond that we have society more generally. So I look at that sort of nesting, as it were, of the children's circumstances, their contexts, and pick out ways in which there could be problems that lead to children having a disadvantage. And the other side of that coin means that we have to look in terms of providing better environments for these children. We have to look similarly at those features: the family, the classroom, the school, the community, and the wider society. So that's the ecological approach that I take in the book. I hope you find it stimulating. I hope you find it challenging. I conclude in my book with the statement that I think it is time we arrested, it is time we did better for our children who come from disadvantaged backgrounds. It is a big responsibility that we face. If we do not face up to that, and if we do not provide better outcomes for achievement and behaviour for children from diverse backgrounds, our societies will suffer. And I think we are seeing signs of those tensions in many of our Western societies that result, I think, from our lack of care, our lack of skill in working with diverse students. So I do hope my book will provide some ideas for the future in providing a better education and a better living circumstance for our diverse students. So goodbye.